Welcome to the deep dive. We take a stack of sources, roll up our sleeves, and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge just for you.
That's the plan.
And today we've got a detailed market research report. We're diving into, well, a pretty specific bit of medical tech.
Yeah.
The global market for photopheresis products.
Right, and photopheresis specifically, we're mostly talking extracorporeal photopheresis, ECP.
ECP, okay.
Yeah, the source material explains it as a therapeutic procedure. It treats the patient's blood outside the body. That's the extracorporeal bit.
Ah, okay.
Outside the body. Exactly. It uses UV light plus a special photosensitizing agent to basically tweak the body's immune response.
Tweak the immune response. Got it. And what's it used for?
It's used for some pretty serious conditions, things like autoimmune diseases, Graft-Versus-Host Disease, GVHD, and also organ transplant rejection.
Okay, so important stuff. Modifying the immune system in this specific way. So our mission today is really to crack open this report, give you the fast track, the key insights, what's driving it, the challenges, basically where this market is heading without you having to wade through all the data.
Exactly. And the report gives us the big picture numbers right away. Globally, this market for ECP products, it was valued at USD $342.86 million in 2025.
342 million, okay.
And looking ahead, it's projected to hit USD $530.19 million by 2033.
Wow, over $500 million.
Yeah. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 5.60% over that time. So, pushing towards $500 million, steady growth, solid.
That tells you right there it's gaining traction. It's not some tiny niche anymore.
Definitely not.
So what's pushing this market forward? According to the source, what are the main drivers behind that 5.6% growth?
Well, there are several key things. A big one is just the rising number of cases globally of autoimmune diseases and also certain blood disorders, hematological disorders.
Right, more patients needing treatment?
Yeah, more diagnoses naturally means more demand for good treatments, and ECP is, becoming a recognized option for some of these.
Makes sense. Basic supply and demand.
Absolutely. And then you've also got more hospitals globally adopting these kinds of, innovative treatment methods.
Okay.
As healthcare infrastructure gets better, more specialized, these complex therapies like ECP just become more practical for them to offer.
And does the aging population play a role?
It does, yeah. The report mentions the rising geriatric population. Older people, unfortunately, often have a higher chance of these immune-related conditions, so that adds to the demand too.
Okay, so patient pool, hospitals adopting it. What about the tech itself? That's often a huge driver in medical markets.
Oh, absolutely. The source really points to advancements in medical technology and device innovation as a major driver.
What kind of advancements are we talking about?
This is really crucial. We're seeing next-generation ECP systems coming out. They're more automated.
Easier to use.
Yeah, easier to use, more efficient, designed for better patient comfort, too. The report even mentions things like integrated AI, better interfaces.
Ah, interesting. AI integration.
And importantly, big improvements in the disposable kits used with the machines, and a really clear trend towards closed system devices.
Okay, you mentioned closed systems before. Why are they such a big deal?
Safety, mostly. They really minimize the risk of contamination because the blood pathway isn't exposed.
Right. Less chance for things to go wrong.
Exactly. And they're often just more streamlined, easier for the clinical staff to handle. So all these tech improvements make the whole procedure more attractive, more practical for hospitals and clinics. That directly drives adoption.
Okay. So beyond those general drivers, diseases, hospitals, tech, is there one particular application that's really acting as a main engine for growth right now?
Yes, there is. The report specifically highlights the growing use of ECP for Graft-Versus-Host Disease, GVHD.
GVHD, we hear about that a lot with transplants.
Exactly. It's a really serious, sometimes life-threatening complication after a stem cell or bone marrow transplant.
Right.
And ECP has become like a cornerstone therapy for managing that immune reaction. So as the number of transplants goes up worldwide, the demand for ECP products to treat GVHD goes up right along with it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, a direct link there. So we see the drivers, rising diseases, hospital adoption, tech leaps, and especially GVHD treatment needs. What about the flip side? What's holding it back or potentially slowing down that growth? The restraints.
The report points out a few things. One is simply the fact that there are other treatment options available.
Competition.
Right. For a lot of autoimmune diseases, ECP isn't the only game in town. Doctors and patients have choices. Other drugs, other therapies might be preferred sometimes based on cost or how easy it is to get or just what the doctor's used to prescribing.
So it's not always the first choice.
Mhm.
What else?
There's also an awareness issue, limited awareness and understanding of ECP therapy, especially maybe in certain regions or among doctors who aren't specialists in these areas.
If people don't know about it.
They can't choose it, right? If doctors and patients aren't fully aware of what it can do, its benefits, how it works, then adoption stays limited.
Makes sense. You can't use what you don't know.
Exactly. And then finally, there are challenges just with the procedure itself. Like
Okay.
any medical procedure, there can be side effects or complications. Things like infection risk or maybe changes in blood pressure.
Okay.
Plus, it usually takes multiple sessions. That can be inconvenient for patients. And outcomes can vary a bit, depending on the patient's response, maybe the operator's skill. These aren't deal breakers, but they are factors that can act as restraints.
Okay, so alternatives, awareness, and the practicalities of the treatment itself. Those are the headwinds. Now let's talk trends. What's new? Where's the market heading that might look different soon?
Yeah, this is where it gets quite interesting. The report shows ECP is really expanding its horizons beyond the traditional uses like GVHD or certain autoimmune conditions.
Oh, like what?
Well, it's being actively explored now for various dermatological conditions, skin conditions.
Really? Like eczema or something?
Things like cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, that's actually a rare blood cancer that mainly affects the skin, and also scleroderma, and even atopic dermatitis. Researchers are looking into how ECP might help modulate the immune response in those kinds of diseases.
Wow, okay. That could really broaden its use if those pan out.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. It's even being explored in oncology.
Cancer treatment, how?
Looking at how ECP might be used to modulate the immune system in ways that could potentially, boost or enhance other cancer therapies. Moving into these completely new therapeutic areas is a major trend to watch.
And I guess driving that exploration is a lot of R&D spending.
Exactly right. The report points to rising investments in research and development right across the industry.
Makes sense.
And that R&D is focused on two things. One, refining the existing devices, making them safer, more efficient, easier to use, like we talked about. And two, clinically proving out these new potential uses, like for skin conditions or in cancer. Companies are definitely looking for the next big thing for ECP.
That paints a really dynamic picture, a market that's growing but also actively evolving and searching for new places to make a difference. Let's break down the market itself now based on the report's segments. How does it split by product type, application, and end user?
Okay, starting with product types, the report basically splits it into open ECP systems and closed ECP systems.
And which one's the bigger slice of the pie right now?
The closed ECP system market is dominant currently.
Okay.
And that's largely down to those advantages we mentioned: safety, efficiency, ease of use. Minimizing that open handling of blood reduces contamination risk. So yeah, it's generally the preferred setup in established ECP centers.
But which type is growing faster? Is it also the closed systems?
Now this is interesting. The open ECP system is actually the fastest growing segment according to the report.
Really? Why is that?
Well, the report suggests a few reasons. Things like flexibility and potentially lower cost. That can be appealing for places just starting an ECP program or maybe where budgets are tighter.
Okay, cost and flexibility.
Plus, apparently improved patient outcomes are being reported with these open systems for certain specific uses. Combine that with ongoing tech improvements in open systems too, and maybe some favorable policies in places. It's kind of the underdog showing real momentum.
Huh. So closed systems lead today, but open systems are the ones really picking up speed. Interesting dynamic. What about the applications? We know GVHD is a big driver, but overall, which application has the largest market share?
Graft-versus-host disease still holds the largest share among all the applications the report looked at.
Okay, GVHD remains king.
Yeah, again, it's just directly tied to the rising number of stem cell and bone marrow transplants happening globally. More transplants mean, unfortunately, more GVHD that needs managing, often with ECP.
And the fastest growing application area, is it GVHD too?
No, that fastest growing title goes to autoimmune diseases.
Ah, okay. Why the rapid growth there?
It seems to be a whole combination of things. The rising prevalence of these conditions worldwide, for one. Then, patients and doctors demanding more advanced treatment options, growing awareness that ECP is an option.
Right.
Plus, better healthcare infrastructure, making it more accessible, the tech advancements in the devices themselves, maybe some supportive government initiatives, and just expanding research into using ECP for more types of autoimmune diseases. It's like a perfect storm driving growth in that segment.
That totally makes sense. If autoimmune diseases are increasing and ECP is becoming better known and easier to access for them, yeah, that growth curve is going to be steep. Okay, last piece of the breakdown, end users. Who's actually using these systems? Hospitals or specialty clinics? Where's the main share?
Hospitals definitely maintain the leading share as end users right now.
Why hospitals?
Well, they usually have the advanced infrastructure you need for complex procedures like ECP. They've got access to the latest tech, often specialized units for things like transplant complications or complex diseases. They see a higher volume of the relevant patients, and critically, they have the skilled staff trained to perform the therapy. Plus, often better funding and research collaborations.
Makes sense. But where's the growth happening? Is it also hospitals?
Actually, no. Specialty clinics are pegged as the fastest growing end user segment.
Interesting. Why are clinics catching up?
Seems to be driven by patient preference, partly. People sometimes prefer specialized care settings, maybe shorter wait times, a more focused environment.
Right.
These clinics are also increasingly investing in the latest tech themselves. Awareness of ECP is growing among the doctors who'd refer patients to these clinics, and there's just more investment happening, leading to more private specialty centers opening up that can offer this therapy.
So the treatment is starting to move beyond just the big hospital centers into more specialized settings.
Exactly. It suggests it's becoming a bit more accessible in different types of facilities.
Okay, that gives us a fantastic breakdown of the market's pieces and how they're moving. Now, let's zoom out again, look at the global map. The report said the whole market was about $343 million in 2025. Where's that money concentrated and where's the really exciting growth happening geographically?
Right. So North America is the current heavyweight champion. It holds over 40% of the global revenue. That came in at USD 126.86 million in 2025.
40%. Wow.
Yeah. And it's growing steadily. Projected growth is about 4.4% CAGR.
And why is North America so dominant?
Well, it's the usual suspects, really. Advanced healthcare infrastructure, high adoption rates for new therapies, unfortunately a high prevalence of the relevant diseases, lots of R&D investment, and generally favorable regulatory pathways. Within North America, the U.S. is the giant, about $100 million of that $126 million.
Okay. And who's number two?
Yeah.
Europe.
Yes, Europe is second, accounts for over 30% of global revenue. That's roughly $99.43 million in 2025. And its growth is actually slightly faster than North America's, projected at 4.7% CAGR.
Okay, so North America and Europe are the big established markets.
Yeah.
But you mentioned solid growth overall. Where's the fastest growth happening? Where's the real action?
That title belongs firmly to the Asia-Pacific region, APAC.
APAC.
Okay. Now, it currently holds a smaller slice, around 23% or $82.29 million in 2025. But, and this is the key thing, it is the fastest growing region globally by a pretty wide margin, projected at an impressive 8.4% CAGR.
Oh, 8.4%. That's nearly double the global average you quoted earlier. What is fueling that kind of acceleration in APAC?
It's really a potent mix of factors, similar drivers to the overall market, but kind of amplified in that region. You've got rapidly rising cases of autoimmune diseases there.
Okay.
Huge increases in healthcare investment, both public and private. They're adopting advanced medical tech quickly. Healthcare infrastructure is expanding rapidly across many key countries. Plus, growing awareness of therapies like ECP, government initiatives pushing to improve healthcare quality, the rise of medical tourism attracting patients, and more research collaborations happening. It's just a really dynamic environment for growth.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any particular countries in APAC leading that charge?
Yeah, the report actually singles out India. It's projected to have the fastest growth country-wise listed anywhere in the report, a striking 10.3% CAGR.
10%.
Yeah, now it's starting from a smaller base, around $8.2 million in 2025, but that growth rate is huge. China is still the largest market within APAC today, about $34.5 million, and it's growing fast, too, at 7.9%.
So China's the biggest market there now, but India's growth rate is just phenomenal.
Exactly. India really represents the leading edge of that rapid regional expansion.
So the global story is North America, the established leader, Europe, the solid number two. And APAC is this like explosive growth engine, really powered by countries like India and China. What about the other regions? South America, Middle East, Africa.
They're smaller pieces of the puzzle. South America accounts for just over 5% of global revenue. That's about $13 million in 2025. It's growing at a decent clip, though. 5.9% CAGR. Brazil is the biggest market there.
Right.
The Middle East is smaller still, around 2% share, about $13.7 million in 2025, but growing slightly faster at 6.1% CAGR. Saudi Arabia leads there.
And Africa.
Africa holds the smallest share, about 1%, roughly $7.5 million in 2025. And it's also the slowest growing region, projected at just 1.9% CAGR.
Okay, that gives us a really clear global picture, the current state and the future hotspots. Finally, let's talk about the companies. Who are the main players making these ECP products and how are they competing with each other?
Well, the report lists several key players. Names like Maca Pharma, MedTech Solutions GmbH, Haemonetics Corporation, Fresenius Kabi AG, Terumo Corporation, and Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals come up.
Okay, some familiar names in medtech.
Yeah, and competition seems to be really centered around a few key things. Innovation in the device technology itself, making strategic partnerships, and pushing to expand both their geographic reach and the list of approved applications for their systems.
Did the report mention any specific recent moves by these companies that kind of illustrate those strategies, like examples?
Yes, it did highlight a couple of recent things. For instance, in September 2024, Mallinckrodt announced that its main ECP system, the Theracos Cell-X, got its CE certification under the updated EU regulations.
CE mark, that's the European approval, right?
Exactly. And it was specifically for uses like cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, solid organ transplant rejection, and both acute and chronic GVHD. So that's a clear example of navigating regulatory hurdles to solidify or expand market access in a key region like Europe.
Right, getting that official stamp of approval is crucial.
Definitely. And then there was Fresenius Kabi. In April 2023, they launched a single needle option for their Amicus ECP system.
Single needle, what's the benefit there?
Potentially easier vascular access for some patients, maybe a bit more comfortable. They also noted its CE marking for palliative CTCL treatment, that's the skin lymphoma, again, specifically for patients who haven't responded to other therapies. So that's an example of refining the device for patient or user benefit and also getting approval for a specific niche application.
Okay, so tech improvements and specific indication approvals.
Right.
Was there anything bigger, like M&A activity?
Yes, a pretty significant one mentioned. In August 2024, CVC Capital Partners, a big private equity firm, agreed to buy Mallinckrodt's entire Theracos ECP business.
Wow, how much for?
The deal was for $925 million.
Nearly $1 billion.
Yeah, and CVC explicitly said they plan to invest more into R&D, work on expanding the indications, the approved uses, and really push for geographic growth.
That kind of money coming in from private equity, that really signals strong confidence in the market's future, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It clearly indicates a strong belief from major investors in the whole trajectory and potential of this ECP market.
So those company moves really drive home the report's main points. This is a market really poised for significant growth, fueled by both the tech getting better and the real growing need for this kind of immune therapy.
It really is that intersection, a clear clinical need for effective immune modulation meeting, constantly advancing technology, and, smart business investments.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Photopheresis Products Market report, the key takeaways seem pretty clear. It's a market set for some real expansion.
Definitely significant growth ahead.
Driven by rising disease rates, especially autoimmune, and ongoing tech innovation.
Yeah.
Application-wise, graft-versus-host disease is the big one now.
But autoimmune diseases are where the fastest growth is.
Right. And end users, hospitals are still the main place, but specialty clinics are catching up fast, making it more accessible.
Yeah, it's a good summary. It's that blend of treating complex, serious conditions combined with this constant push for better tech and finding new ways to use it that really defines the market right now.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. The report highlighted this trend of expanding applications exploring ECP for skin conditions, maybe even in oncology. So consider this. How might this therapy, if these explorations prove successful, fundamentally change the landscape of treatment options in the coming years? What could that shift mean for patient care, not just in niche areas, but potentially much more broadly around the globe?